yet, so just
Okay.
clear your throat and
All right.
I'll let you know when. Now.
Okay. Thanks, Cello. I'm going to say a few opening comments just because Lisa wasn't able to make it today. She had a COVID shot yesterday. She had some side effects and texted that she didn't think she would be able to join this morning. So what she was going to say, just as a way of introduction, is that the working team has been meeting, has done some great work, has used all the past input and attempted to consolidate the information into assessment questions that can use by participants, at least as a starting place for internal maturity assessments. The team has developed questions and maturity statements based on all the past input from the workforce and organizational culture teams, that the consolidated framework has been created that is to be incorporated into a model and the maturity scale, and that the team's feedback today and the purpose of today, while this isn't a workshop, it'll be useful in constructing a workshop in 2 weeks, which will further advance the model so we can complete this, version 1.0 by the end of the month when we are going to be submitting a deliverable. So that's her opening comment, and I'll turn it over to Khosrow and Cello to go through the slides and a survey that we're going to wind up doing with the team today on the work that's some of the work that's been done to date.
Thank you, Scott. So just wanted to give a brief update. I know you've probably seen this before, but for those of you that haven't, we started off with 2 workshops, one with the workforce and one for organizational culture. And from those workshops, we gleaned over 400 statements or things that we should reflect on or include in this maturity model. And so we had a task ahead of us to take those 400 plus statements and put them in some meaningful format and framework so that we can start creating the maturity model. And then of course, how are we going to assess, to put together an assessment model. So we took all of those, we collapsed them into sort of 45 preliminary categories, and we put the statements in each category to help us create some maturity of level 5 maturity statements. And then once we did that, we looked at it. There were a lot of overlaps and a lot of duplications. So we ended up collapsing those back into further 20 categories. And then now we had not only a shorter list, but a more meaningful framework. And what we ended up doing from those 20 categories is further place a lot of the maturity statements into 8, what we call sections, or really at this point, they themselves may become categories. So these 8 sort of reflect on the major things that we think we should be looking at when we are looking at a maturity model of an organization. And then we've got some assessment questions based on each one of those. So that's what we want to present to you today and get your feedback to say, do these make sense? Again, these are also our preliminary thoughts. They haven't been vetted all the way through yet, but we need your feedback before we go to the next step. The sections, I don't know.
I think Cello was gonna,
yeah.
You can basically complement what he's doing and fill in any gaps, Khosrow.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today, we're going to go through a few pages. I'm going to show the question, the level 5 maturity statement on the left, and the questions on the right. Sometimes there's more than one question for a level 5 maturity statement. And if you can, when you're on this page, you will, so I'm going to keep that up. And if you can go to menti.com, just like it's written here, and use this code a lot there, and just look at the questions and say, okay, for question 1, I think you should delete it, to I think that the question is great. So if you can just answer that, give basically a rating between 1 and 5 to each one of these questions. So that way we're gonna repeat that for every section. So that way we're gonna get some feedback of how people feel about these questions. The maturity statements we have sort of discussed and vetted before, but this was sort of the fastest way to get some sense of how the broader group of things, what they think about these questions. So you have a chance to look at them. If somebody cannot see them, if it's too small on their screen, let me know and I can try to shuffle these windows around. So you can just provide your input. Again, you are looking at these questions. Oh, I'm sorry, these questions. Excellent. I'm starting to have, we're starting to have some feedback here. And we have 11 people voting because I'm not voting. And when the votes are in, I'm going to just go to the next group of questions.
Can you just,
Yes.
can you move the organizational strategy and performance over so I can see the questions? Thank you.
Okay. Is this better?
Perfect. Thank you.
The problem is I need to monitor both. So
That's better, Shalom. We can see
So-
both now.
It looks like almost everybody voted.
yeah. So what I'm going to do is, it takes a little bit of gymnastics to get, and I'm going to go to the next question and present the next question. And then go to
There you go.
these two questions, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, one is for organizational values, and the other one is for responsibility and accountability. Catherine, do you mind if let me know if you want to speak? Raise your hand because there's a bit of a low frequency noise coming through a microphone. Do you mind if I mute you for a minute?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, we have 7 in, you're 4 more. And then we'll go to the next one, 9. Just waiting for a couple more. Okay, just need a couple of more folks to get the full vote. Okay, we're at 10 now. Okay, okay. So I will go to the employee engagement. And then go to employee engagement questions. Sorry for jumping around. It's just
You're doing great, Sheldon.
the software is kind of like that. So we have 5 questions, 5 maturity statements and questions on this one.
People got, most people anyway, would have received a memo from Lisa on early Sunday morning and saying that we weren't expecting this. It could, but we weren't expecting this particular call to go more than about 30 minutes. And I know, Catherine said she's jumping off at 8, and we'll see how this goes. But we may want to cover a couple other things like some next steps and those kind of things. That you can be thinking about Khosrow, and Cello in summarizing that as well. Yeah, and people, Mark just put a comment into the chat, which was basically making a suggestion on one of the questions in terms of tweaking the words. So if anybody else has any of those, they can enter that in chat as well.
Yeah, that's very good. So one more, and then we're gonna go to the next one. So I think we're doing reasonably okay with the questions so far. I think there's only 2 more slides. No, okay, very good. Thank you for the comments. They're all very useful. So we have 11. I will go to the next one and present, and then go to the next. Next is 14, 15, and 16 are condensed questions from the teamwork and collaboration and reward and recognition. And these things you're putting in the chat line, that all is going to get preserved, and we're going to go back later and just make the edits and changes. By the way, I will post this, both the results and the presentation actually has already been posted. And so if you have a chance later to sort of if you have a chance later to have some thoughts on it, you can see all this PowerPoint presentation on the right, and I'll take a copy of what's on the left. And if you have some additional comments, that will be very much appreciated.
Yeah, some good comments in the chat.
Yeah, very good.
And some good results too. It's good feedback on the Mentimeter poll.
So it'll be very helpful if you tell us, well, this is really not very good. It'll be even more helpful if you can tell us this is how you can make it better, so that everybody's thoughts can be implemented. We got one more person to give them opportunity to vote, and then we'll go to the next question. All right, so we're there. We'll go to the next one. By the way, this is, sorry for the jumping. So this is communication and feedback. By the way, we have 21 questions overall, so there are 3 here and 2 more in a different category, and then we have one more question sort of overall, and then we'll be done with this kind of interactive survey. I think people are getting the hang of it. We're getting through questions at a good pace. And I want to give special thanks to the core group who worked on this, and Kesra went way beyond the Call of Duty on this. All right, moving ahead, just one more. And I think there's just one more category. This is it. We'll go do, sorry. So this question, give me just a second, is, we've covered all the categories. So, I'm sorry. So this question really is of the way these 19 questions, the way they, do you think that there's like not enough questions, too many questions? If questions are clear, they're not clear, and whether overall the survey makes sense. So you can just, give your votes to to those statements that you feel are correct, so we get a you know, a sense for where we can improve. I want to say that the strategy that we have in place is that this would be the first tier of questions, which means that when you answered a low, when a question got, it would be sort of the first level diagnostics. And then in the spreadsheet, we have a lot of other, we have several other questions on tier 2 that would then, you know, if you had a, like, if there was a low score on a particular category, then there would be a subset of questions that are more detailed for that subcategory. But I see that so this is, we have everybody's votes in. Just a second. So let me see, I think that this is the last slideshow, so we can get rid of this. So if we see what the survey is telling us, is that questions seem to be, most of them okay. We'll see which ones, you know, need most improvement. But we also see that half the people feel that questions are not clear. So, and I guess most people, we have one that there's not enough questions. The other one is that there's too many questions.
Everybody else must feel that it's about right. Who didn't say too many or too few.
Well, we have talked to the core team, and we asked, and they said that the survey should have 12 to 15 questions. That was we have 19. So because we wanted to capture all categories, so there was a lot of thought of what to keep, how to consolidate, not to lose any things. And as Keisha said, we started with 400 statements. So I think that the biggest issue that I see is, especially since we're going to have 2 tiers of questions, I think that the concern about not enough questions will be addressed by that, because this will be just a first level diagnostic, and then we can have another one. But the too many questions, you know, we started with 400, came down to 19. So it is, we can try to tighten it up, but we didn't, if I look at these things, we didn't have any questions say, you know, delete this question. So we have to kind of figure out how to deal with that. So I'm going to open it up for discussion now. I know that Catherine needs to leave, but just open discussion, you know, see what people feel, and I'll stop sharing. Give me just a second. Okay, and see, you know, how, you know, get some additional feedback. By the way, hi, Zanetta. Sorry, we were already going full speed.
And we should say also that on Thursday, the organizational culture team will be going through the same kind of thing. So we'll have 2 sources of input, and then the idea would be that the core team, the working team, would be taking all this input, tweaking things, and then we would have a workshop in a couple weeks with a wider group, including people that could, from improvement teams, not on the people teams, who could be invited to give their feedback as well.
Okay.
So anyone have comments that you haven't already put in the chat, or anyone want to speak up about the survey?
Catherine, I'm having trouble, if you're still here. No, she's left. I was having trouble unmuting her, but I guess.
Hey,
Don't see any
Scott.
hand. Oh, Mert, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna, in case the comment I made in the chat wasn't clear, I just wanted to reemphasize the sort of utilities tend to work in almost a little bit like sometimes military. There's the hierarchy and the pyramid structure, but that's not really good when it comes to communicating across levels. I was listening to, from time to time it comes up in my feed, the unfortunate Challenger tragedy and kind of what led to it, the space shuttle. Yep. So the importance of being able to communicate to the people who can actually make a difference without having to go through like, minions, if you will, that is important. And I kind of would like to get it reflected somehow.
Okay, Patricia?
You. Good morning, everyone. I put this in the chat, but I just wanted to mention that we need to standardize the questions. Some of them were in a question form, and most of them were in statements. And assuming we're going to use a Likert scale of some sort, and I'm not sure whether we're going to do a 5-point Likert scale or what, but assuming we're going to use a Likert scale, they need to be more like statements that people can evaluate, and maybe, just tweaking some of them so that to make sure that they're in that same format and that they will apply to whatever Likert scale is chosen. And at this point, you might want to choose the Likert scale and say, what is it going to be? Is it strongly like, strongly dislike, strongly perform, whatever we're going to use. That way you can kind of make sure the questions are aligned with it.
Yep.
Okay, good question. A good comment. We'll definitely do that. And it was a 5-point Likert scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree that we had envisioned, but some of the questions may not match that. So you're correct. So we'll do that.
If there aren't other comments, we're running a little over, but we had more time available that was blocked out earlier. But maybe Khosra, Cello, and others could talk about some of the, what's besides what people have commented on, what else is going to be done by the working team to get this to a form for the workshop.
Yes, what our next steps are going to be is once we nail down the sort of tier 1 questions, we're going to go back to the big spreadsheet that has all the different things and sort out what would be the follow-up questions to any of the of these 19. If there are follow-up questions, if somebody says, well, this is, or a number of people say, well, this is absolutely terrible, that would then be targeted just for that, just for that area. So even with what we have now, I think that even if we can define the first level of questions, these 19, I think it'll be a reason, a very nice progress. But the second tier will be a bit more work, and we may, shuffle through a couple of iterations on that one. But that I don't believe needs to happen by the end of this month, and we could extend that analytical work into April and even May when our project is officially over. But if for the report we can nail down just 19 or whatever questions are going to be, clean them up, make them more clear, then I would feel that we would be in good shape. So our next step immediately will be to have a workshop, and first of all, to clean up these questions based on comments. And if you said that the questions were not clear, please, send us comments on how you think they could be made more clear. And then we're going to go and have a broader group. We had 11 people here. We're going to probably, open it. We're going to open it up to more people, whoever wants to participate, and have them go through a similar exercise then and send it out. So that's really the plan, to have this level wrapped up for the draft report and do more work for tier 1, 2 in April and May. The other thing we want to do in April and May is plan the work in the following year, because we're going to continue under the sponsorship of WEF. So in the next year, one of the things that we might do, if people are up for it, actually start using this instrument and then comparing what kind of results people were getting in different organizations, and proceed with if we, if we see that we may want to fine tune the methodology after we apply it for the first time, and then so those are kind of the ideas, and we have that cycle of improvement methodology that in addition to having maturity model and assessment, we also have to figure out what do you actually do once, when you get the bad report card back, what are the things that you need to do? So that is something that we would, again, work collaboratively in the next phase that was of the WISE effort under WEF that will start when the WRF project is done. So sorry that my answer was not very concise, but that's sort of what we're planning for the future.
And Cello, the change management team, that last point that you made about what do you do about it, what are the improvements and all that, it
Yes.
relates to that as well and what that process looks like. Khosrow, did you want to just comment at all on the team was also looking at, the working group was also looking at demographics, and you're on mute.
Yeah, I was going to mention that we're also looking at some demographic questions, and of course, it all depends on whether you're a small organization or a large organization. And so what our thoughts were, we're looking at some questions. What are the typical questions that would apply? And then we're going to let organizations decide which ones they want to tack on to the survey. So if it's a small organization, they may not want to specifically know what department or area you're working in, because that would probably be a tell of who said what. So in order to make it anonymous, some organizations may have really young people, and some close to retirement may want to know the different opinions. So they may want to put the age question in there, but we don't want to define what they should and should not ask. We can just provide, we were thinking we could just provide a list of demographic questions that they could pose, and then they can pick and choose what works for their organization. Also, I think that with these questions, with the tier 2 questions, once we get those kind of figured out, there's a couple of different ways I think that the organization can use them. One is do the 19 question survey, then figure out where the weaknesses are and say, okay, we want to horn in on this. So these are the second set of questions we can ask about this. Or on the other hand, the organization may have a goal right up front. They want to know, employee engagement. Is this important to me? And if they want employee engagement is the only thing they want to focus on and not the others, they can pick that level 1 and the level 2 questions and go out there and just ask those. So it gives organizations flexibility in what they want to achieve from the survey, what is their goal, and then apply them accordingly. So as structured as they are to provide the input that'll make sense, at the same time, you want to be able to provide them flexibility based on their organizational needs.
Yeah, there have been a few people who have dropped off, but there are members of the working group on the call. And I'm just looking on the screen. I see Alice, her live picture of her as opposed to a button at the bottom. So if anybody wants to add anything to what we've covered today, this would be a good time.
Mert.
Yeah, I wanna add something. Cello, if I understood you correctly, or I don't know, maybe it wasn't you, I'm sorry who said it, but when it comes to sort of trying to close the gap, we didn't get 5s, whatever, I think it's a little bit of a challenge. I think it's almost, there is a lot of generalities, sure, on what organizations can do to close the gap, but I think it's also needs to be somewhat specific. I don't think I'm thinking right now, we don't necessarily need to worry too much about that component in our reporting. I think the basic things such as, you need to have initially a representative group that does the scoping together in a brainstorming session way on how to close the gap, like the tasks involved. And then there could be a corresponding implementation team within the organization that takes that on. I think we could talk about some metrics and some structure around, like what can we track while these implementation and scoping work is going on to make it stick. But other than that, I think it's almost going to be every organization's journey will be somewhat unique given their org structure or culture and whatnot. Maybe it's too ambitious to be too specific about that. And maybe that wasn't your plan anyway, but at least I wanted to put it out there.
Yeah, others may want to comment on this also, but we were viewing the change process more of a process rather than the content of what do you do, in this situation versus that. But it's almost exactly what you said, Mert, that you would assemble a team, you would and plan it, and you'd have a process, and you would measure results, and maybe a year later you might take the survey again.
Well, yes, and we will integrate this if we think about the overall model that we have, and how change management fits and everything. I don't have a way to quickly find the slide and show. Change management will then sort of take over once we get these results. And there are also some other things that we could consider. For example, do we really want to give the survey to the entire organization? Because perhaps you can start smaller. Perhaps you can say, you know what, we were going to start with this procurement. And then you build a process model, business process model for procurement, and you see which departments are involved. Yes?
Cello, I just had an idea. I think we absolutely need to give it to the whole organization, but look at the results across organizational groups just to see where we need to focus on the most.
Okay, well, that's certainly, yeah, that's certainly a possibility. What I would like to, we can have these types of discussions. What I'm saying is there's an option to select how you want to deal with, if change management is a process, you may want to make a decision for your organization, what type of process makes most sense. If you look at a very large organization and you send a survey everywhere, people, when you ask them questions, they expect you to do something about it. And to do, to say, let's go change organizational culture in this place, it's a bit of a heavy lift. So you might, some, even if you do it, you might say, why don't we start with a smaller, with a part of the organization, or 2 or 3, departments, or a process that maybe kind of, there used to be a show on National Public Radio called Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers, the Magliazzi brothers. And one day, one person called, and they had like a really expensive car, like a Jaguar or something. And they said, well, how would I best, I don't want to pay this much money to get it painted. How would I do this? And they say, well, buy a couple of Yugos and practice, So what I'm thinking is that's going to be the change management discussion. How do we actually make this flexible enough that fits, everybody's purpose, and it doesn't require everything to change if at once. So, but there are people on this call who are, professionals with a lot of experience in these areas, and I think they will all have a voice. Patricia and Kesra and Alice and Ramona and Pat and everybody will have a chance, and they say, okay, this is this is what would work best for us, and we'll have a methodology that's flexible. So we are tackling a pretty big problem. So, it may not be done in a week. Any other thoughts or questions?
This is Patricia.
Yes.
Forgot how to where the hand thing was now, because now it's got a a picture and a hand. I was like, oh, that's the one. Anyway, I just wanted to say that as you know, from the last meeting on Friday and the team deciding to make it available to, you know, and let everyone select how they want to do it, I actually think is a really great idea, only because of what you said, Cello, and what I think others have said. Every organization is so different, and the size of the organizations are different. And even the demographics, you know, giving them an opportunity to ask which demographic questions they want. I think as long as we put a strong statement in there about anonymity and the importance of it, and so please take that into consideration when you select your demographics. I think, and if you have a small group, you may not be able to, you know, use some of these questions. I think as long as we provide some really good instructions, make it really easy for them. And I'm not sure technology-wise how we make that, where they can select which one they want to do. And, you know, I'm not sure from a technology standpoint how we can make it as seamless and, you know, as stress-free as possible. But if there's someone who has that expertise and can say, hey, this is the way to do it and set it up this way, I think that would be phenomenal, because the easier we make it, the more inclined they are to use it and then use it again.
No, that's an excellent comment. I have some ideas on the technology side, and you know, I think these things are going to be very exciting topics for us to discuss as we go forward. I just want to share something very quickly, just because this is the spreadsheet that we were working from, and this. You remember that we had just a few questions on the organizational strategy and performance. These are all the things that we extracted from, you know, those 400 things. Then we worked on this. So there was a lot of detailed work and consolidation, but this detailed work is still there. So for those tier 2 questions, we have places to go to, at least for a start. We're not going to start from scratch. So I think that's, you know, there is a manageable way to get through this, and then think about the technology that can be helpful. Absolutely. And especially if I would really appreciate it for folks who mentioned that you know, questions are not clear, or statements, whatever you can help us with and say, okay, you know, this is a proposed, you know, modification, would be helpful. Mark.
I wonder, Chella, if some of us from the core team, all of us, if we're available, but could get together between now and Thursday and walk through it, do an update, and then get some more feedback at the Thursday meeting with the org culture team.
Oh, that'd be great. I can set up a doodle poll and send it out and see if we can find a slot. Yeah.
I mean, maybe even half an hour might be enough, you know.
Yes.
So not to impose too much on people's time, because I think it's getting easier, because it's getting narrower.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yes, you're muted.
I have already started taking the comments in the chat window and putting it in that spreadsheet by the questions. So I think if we meet together, we can look at the comments that people have provided and look at the statements and see how we can change them. And it'd be good to do it before Thursday. Yep. So that we have that next, you know.
Exactly. With a focus on clarity. And then I think another comment I heard, which I read, which was a good one, is to use plain language.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So clarity and plain language.
Plain language. And then I think the third thing is Patricia's point of, you know, some are questions and some are statements.
Oh, yeah. Gotta fix that.
So we should figure out what, you know, what works best for each question. And
yep.
So those are the key things that we can look at.
We should fix that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really great and very much appreciated. So I'll send the doodle poll out and see what we can figure out for like Wednesday, if there's a slot on Wednesday. And if we can't make that, we cannot, because, you know, Mark, then we can have at least with the, you know, organizational culture team, you know, with you and Zonetta and to sit down and whoever else, you know, a smaller group. I'm not sure if we can manage to get the, you know, how many, because it's 2 days from now. So whatever we can, whatever we can do.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Yeah. So I'm gonna stop recording, and
I have just one other thing I wanted to say.
sure.
The work that we have done, if there's things that we could have done better, or things if we could have improved somehow, or things that really worked well, we would appreciate those comments too, because if after this first report is out and we get back and do that second level question and stuff, it would really help to get some feedback on the framework and the way these, the way these workshops are being put together. And however, that feedback would be really important for us to move forward.